Yeah, this is Midsummer's Day. Not brilliant, is it? You can see, not fantastic. However, mast on its frame, the tide is pouring in. It's going to be a spring tide today, pretty strong tide, so I'm going to ride the first bit up the Trent, drop the hook, wait for the tide to drop, and then ride the next bit up. That's my plan. I hope that the wind drops away. The weatherman says the wind is going to drop away. Do that, please. Be good. So. Well, the old Humber is looking particularly today. Midsummer's Day, you just can hardly believe it. The wind is still strong. It was supposed to have dropped away to about 10 miles an hour, but my guess is still 20. The weatherman is still saying it's going to drop away today, and the river's looking really grim and horrible. So I'm going to go and tie myself up in my usual spot behind Whitten Island and wait for the tide to finish rising and then let it ebb, and then I'll pick, if the weather's cheered up, I'll pick up the rising tide this afternoon. I think tide turns about 2 or 3, so I'll pick it up then and then drift up the Trent. There's no point in going now, it just looks shit. I'll show you, look. Looks horrible, doesn't it? On my rather ugly frame, obviously stymies the movement of the outboard. I can live with that, and it also means that I can't lift this up. So I'm going to undo these bits, so I've at least got a tiller pilot, so I can get away from the outboard a little bit. I can live with it flopping around, it's fine. Can stick over the top, doesn't matter, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to free my, and the other trouble is it's snagged the tiller extension. Rather stupid of me. So I'm going to undo it, lift it up, get the tiller extension out, that way I can move around a bit. You can see that I don't know, it looks pretty dark through there. It has cheered up quite a bit actually, the wind's dropped a fair bit. Tide is really slamming out. So it's about past 12, so I reckon I've got another couple of hours of tide dropping out. Don't know how much water there'll be left here. Getting out of here might be a bit tough, but I can do it. Wow, it does look grey in that viewfinder. Maybe it is actually quite grey. It drizzled a bit, but the tide has nearly run out of poke. And the wind has gone, so I'm just going to make a cup of coffee and head off. I'll plug the last of the ebb and then I shall pick up the flood underneath me with any luck. You see there's not much of a tide going, look. still going out there. It's coming in here. I'm still just about going backwards because the ebb has got me. It's doing weird things actually because the incoming tide has just stalled. That is amazing. There was a blast of incoming tide and it stopped. Wow. Just a pulse of incoming tide. Maybe that's an age year, I don't know. It's doing its last little zoom out. It's treated me like a bit of flotsam or jetsam, not sure what it is. And I'm just being held in a little spin here. Been around 720 degrees so far. It's narrowed down to a tiny strip of outgoing water with slightly incoming either side of it. Don't quite know. It's definitely advancing on that side. Now it's going to grab hold of me, look. Wind has gone completely, which is nice. It's funny, that's really weird. Tide was flooding in, it's coming in over there now. It's two changes of direction. Sadly, it started to rain.
Gainsborough is a town with a 1,000-year history, and over all that time it was the Trent tides that brought the wealth and the goods. Now nothing stops along the river. No one, that is, but the odd passing leisure sailor here using the waterways pontoon. You get a key for the gate, along with a £120 licence.
The speed of the tide here is nothing short of impressive. It's almost a standing wave here. There are in places standing waves, incredible. It comes up so fast. Amazing. I've been here 2 hours and the tide has come up about 10 feet. It's extraordinary, the speed with which it comes up. And it's still pouring in. Look at that.
One famous figure was this bloke, Canute. Yes, that Canute. He lived here. Clearly he must have known that the tides were unstoppable, so what was he thinking with all that beach and throne stuff? The town was a hotbed of activity during the English Civil War. It changed hands several times in a series of fruitless, futile encounters. In more recent years, the wealth of the town was based on the massive Marshall Works, founded in 1848, where they started making traction engines. It was here that the mechanisation of agriculture really started. Then they moved on to petrol-driven tracked vehicles, fighter planes, tanks, and finally back to tractors again. The engineering works here finally went belly up in the 1990s. But not before leaving some great architecture, including this wonderful school that took all the kids from the town from 5 to 18. The building, with its shining, echoing corridors, was eventually declared unfit for purpose, and the kids are now shipped out to glass classrooms in buildings made of ticky-tacky further out of town. You can see the terraces and alleys where the thousands of men who worked for Marshalls lived. The churches and chapels where they prayed are still there, but God has more or less forsaken Gainsborough. They're now used as art centres and performance spaces. Marshalls also created the town square because the old works has become a shopping centre. Fountains for kids and pigeons to cool off in. Frippery and fashion is everywhere. But all around you the industrial history is there to see, and if you walk into Halfords and look up, you can see some wonderful soaring brickwork internal arches from the old factory and foundry. As a final act of humiliation to the thousands of brilliant engineers who once worked in this factory, the gantry has been turned into an entrance arch. Its mechanism has been painted into oblivion. The town has seen better days. Houses are cheap, and Gainsborough is now home to a large population of Eastern Europeans, and even has the best head shop in Lincolnshire.
The tide has now turned. I've been to Greg's for a sausage roll and a cup of coffee. I'm going to get in the boat and I'm going to travel back with the tide. English woodland. sound of water and an aeroplane.
Wrócę do Irlandii swej w ten najważniejszy dzień. Usłyszę od dziewczyny mej, że ciągle kocha mnie i pójdę z nią przez morza łąk, gdzie wiernie czekał nas miłości dom i stary klon. Nad nami tęczy Bożej łuk, rozwinie się jak dach. W błękicie tu wśród kwiatów lnu położę Cię nam znak i będzie nam pod tęczą tam, jak zawsze miało być. Będziemy tak przez 1000 lat z jednego źródła pić.
So I've got an evening here now, which will be nice and quiet. There's a road up there, but there's also supposed to be a shower. So I'm just going to get the key and check out the shower. Look at all their junk here, parked here. I'll go for a walk and have a look at the canal. Pissing down with rain. Mark 1 cockpit tent. It's amazing how much roomier it makes the cabin feel. Suddenly you can use the cockpit. I'm using up all the stuff that's left over. So slightly bizarre supper it is. Oh dear, I broke it. Okay. Pasta, pesto and tomatoes. And reggie sauce. You can't get this, Americans. It's a British product. Made by a very nice Jamaican man who was on Dragon's Den. Yum, yum. It looks a bit blue because I'm under a blue tarpaulin, but I'll try and warm up because yum, yum. always exciting for us sailors, you know that, do you?
I know.
Thank you very much. Thank you. When's the last time I can come to you on Thursday night?
Thursday we will be here until 6.
6, okay.
What's your draft? That's actually
15 inches.
That's all right. Yeah, we'll be until 6 on Thursday.
It's a different world, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you come through there. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. I should enjoy my shower.
Yes, I know. I go boating. Look forward to a show.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you. This is Torksey Lock. I have to say there's a lot of green crud in the water. It bothers me a bit. I don't really want to screw up the outboard, however. Let's trust the filters. Well, I could just put the other outboard on. Listen to these birds. This canal was built by the Romans. Well, strictly speaking, it wasn't built by the Romans. It was built by the Brits while the Romans held the spears. And so if the Ouse is a Viking river, then this is a Roman navigation, and the Trent is a Roman navigation. So I am sailing in the wake of the Romans, which is rather nice. It was improved in 1127, I think. Obviously, there's some work been done on it since, but it's a pretty significant place. As it says on the boards, it has a good claim to being the oldest canal in Britain. going to the bank here. Nope, sailing out of it. Well done, boat. I know that the cable is miles overhead. It's got to be about 12 feet higher than... I still hate it. However, rivers are more exciting than canals. Sorry about that, canal people, but that's just the way it is. Wow, those bridges were tight. Much tighter than they should have been. I was just about fitted underneath it, so only just. Going back, I should be able to go for it. It'd be great. Okay, so I'm going to stay in Lincoln. So I'm going to go for a little walk around the town and have a look at the place. One of my internet connections, a chap called Julian, his dad, wrote some travel books about Lincoln. He was an artist, and Lincoln's scrapbook, a Lincolnshire Gleanings and Lincolnshire Medley, and I'm going to follow his tour of Lincoln, which has got a map in it and lots of illustrations, so I'm going to find my way around Lincoln. Good, eh?
The city is an absolute cracker of a place to visit. Bring a bike, because the flatland fen dwellers, like their Dutch doppelgangers, have always taken bikes seriously. The streets are marvellous, with a splendid range of weird shops and one-off stores. The perfect labyrinth is lined with buildings that dip and weave down through the centuries. You can get everywhere by bike, and traffic-free bikeable paths thread all around the city and thrust out along the waterways.
Glory hole.
Although I confess that I did cycle in a few places where bikes are not supposed to go, but nobody mind. There's a marvellously narrow alley just by the glory hole. And then come the steps.
Can I take some pictures of your pies? Can I take some pictures of your pies? For my Australian friend.
Alright, okay.
You know they're obsessed.
I always head straight for the pie stalls whenever I get somewhere and ask for their most popular pies. That way they take them seriously. My advice is to ignore the Stilton and venison crud. Go for something meaty and high calorie.
I'll buy quiche from you before I leave.
Okay, no problem.
Go to Lincoln in the early summer when the markets are full of East Anglian produce and the town is looking leafy and lovely. Lincoln has been a civilised place to live since before the Iron Age. That's almost 2,000 years of culture, with just the occasional lapse into thuggery, anti-Semitism and civil war. Not a bad record by English standards, because we English are a warlike bunch of thugs.
Roman gate. 1 of 4, presumably.
Of course, it was the Nazi-esque Roman regime that decided that the easy-to-defend position on top of a hill surrounded by fertile land was also a great place from which to dominate this prime real estate where meat, wool, timber and grain gushed in profusion. What it lacked was decent connections with navigable water, so they built the Fosse Navigation and created a massive freight terminal in Brayford Water at the foot of the steep hill. The everlasting agricultural wealth of Lincolnshire could be poured out into the rest of Britain and the northern parts of the Roman Empire, from vast agricultural estates owned by retired military personnel and worked by slaves. The area was run as a sort of Roman old soldiers' retirement home. You know the deal. Spend 25 years in armour freezing your balls off guarding Hadrian's Wall and your reward is a slice of Lincolnshire. So the place was not entirely unlike Tunbridge Wells in the 50s and 60s. Then the Vikings came and took it from the Romans. It boomed. Then the Danes took it from the Vikings. Or is it the other way round? It boomed again. Then the Normans came and took everything from everybody. They built a castle and a cathedral using slaves. 100 years later, in 1185, a massive earthquake almost brought the Norman cathedral down. You can still see the cracks inside. But the cathedral itself is a fantastic space. Arches and frippery wherever you look. In places, it goes a bit Gormenghast on you, but that's okay too.
This facade tells a story. You can see the original Norman church, which ends there. Here, these towers here, there, and they end there. And you can see these Norman arches here. But then it all gets very pointy and fancy, so we start getting these fancy bits put on here, all these spires, and then in order to keep it up, they put on flying buttresses and all sorts. There were loads of statues around the outside, but they've been torn down by Cromwell's lot. Curious. He left all the kings, strangely.
There was a pretty significant Jewish population here until 1255. Lincoln, you see, had a reputation as a Jew-friendly city. But they flourished rather too well, so the authorities, who at the time were the monarchy and the church, cooked up a plot to blame the local Jews for the murder of an 8-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. His name was Little Hugh. His body was found down a well, but the story got around that he'd been lured away by a beautiful daughter of a local Jew and handed over to the Jewish luminaries for the child to be ritually slaughtered in a so-called blood libel ceremony. Lurid descriptions and depictions of the boy's ritualized death were spread across the nation. 18 Jews were hanged and the rest were expelled from the city. Incidentally, all the money from the Jewish community was confiscated and, wait for it, given to the king, who then passed a fair slug of it back to the church. There is a shrine to Little St. Hugh in the Cathedral. People used to come on pilgrimages to this holy spot to see how dastardly the Jews were. The church played a key role in this money-grabbing anti-Semitic atrocity and continued to milk the story for literally centuries afterwards. Pilgrims to the tomb of Little St. Hugh gave the cathedral money, and they spent a fair slug of it on the latest in stained glass to keep those pilgrims coming back. It was a bit like the Blackpool illuminations, something new every year. The cathedral is still big on stained glass. It is amazing. Bring your binocs with you and a camera, and be prepared to be the subject of shock and awe. The images are bright, beautiful, and really rather scary. We're taught that Christianity is a gentle religion. Is it heck? I don't really believe in a divine maker and wouldn't call myself a Christian, but if ever I doubted the depth of gospel indoctrination that threaded my English education from 5 until 18, then I need look no further than these windows. I find, much to my surprise, that I'm aware of almost every Bible story portrayed here. It brings home what a gruesome book the Bible really is. Lots of death and mayhem portrayed. Lots of spears and violence, beheadings and ritual slaughter of animals, and of course, the central figure of Jesus being ritually slaughtered as well. Jesus is always fair-skinned and fair-haired. He's pretty toned in some of the images, almost homoerotic, the way the disciples like to touch and fetishize his wounds. From the windows you can learn that having gold around your head is really important. Everyone looks up to the bloke with the golden crown. And two figures portrayed here have gold around their heads: Jesus and all the kings. Both get looked up to. Of course, none of the kings are depicted washing people's feet or being nailed to crosses or anything as humiliating and degrading as that. Incidentally, below all these fine stained glass windows paid for by pilgrims come to be fed on these crazy mixed up medieval messages beaming at them from on high, there's a plaque put up in 1955. It's a small one. It's an apology from the Christians for their role in the disgraceful Little St. Hugh episode. It says, "Such stories do not redound to the credit of Christendom, so we pray, Lord, forgive what we have been, amend what we are, and direct what we shall be." That's all right then. They've said they're sorry. Did take half a millennium though, didn't it? All this ostentatious, pious, pompous, papal-inspired imagery is reminiscent of the sort of religious tosh promulgated by Hollywood in the 50s. Charlton Heston and Cecil B. DeMille would approve of Lincoln and its grotesque messages. This is the Alfred Lord Tennyson statue. Lincolnshire man he was, became poet laureate after Wordsworth popped his clogs. He was the longest incumbent ever. He penned the poem about the charge of the Light Brigade. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death rode the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them. He was never a man to leave a good line unrepeated. As a freelance, paid by the word, I admire his gall. He is apparently the 9th most quoted poet in the English canon. Nature read in tooth and claw, that's his. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than ever to have loved at all. There's not to reason why, there's but to do and die. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. So, what is it from Tennyson that the Lincolnshire people chose to represent this prolific old wordsmith? This is his best poem, according to Lincolnshire. So listen up, lads. Here it comes. This is real culture. Flower in the crannied wall, I pluck you out of the crannies. I hold you here, root and all, in my hand. Little flower, but if I could understand what you are, root and all in all, I should know what God and man is. It's rubbish, isn't it?
Up then.
Well, I'll do one of mine off the
Do that then, that would be brilliant.
Right.
What's your name?
Ricardo.
Ricardo. Thank you, Ricardo.
Ricardo Martin Day.
Hey.
And this is called Lazy Baroque.
Ricardo.
On your way down the hill, you come across these two sculptures. No idea why they're there. I like the woman and child, and I like the energy in the other one. I really enjoy looking at municipal sculptures. I always hope that I can learn something about the essence of a city from its statues. Incidentally, here's a thing. Like Gainsborough, they used to make traction engines, and it was here that they made the first battle tanks the world had ever seen. A case of really turning ploughshares into swords. I reckon the city is worth a couple of days of any sailor's time.